Hello everybody, it's Sarah, and it is time again to talk about the worst and the best books of the year, starting with the worst. But first, very quickly about my average rating this year. This year was kind of funny because it doesn't feel like I did that great. I only had 6 5-star books, so that's like one every 2 months. Not amazing. However, overall I had a lot of books that I ended up being obsessed with, even though I didn't give them 5 stars. And I didn't have that many books that I rated very lowly. I rated 5 books in total under 3 stars. These are the books that I will talk about in this video in the worst of 2025. And then the lowest of those was 1.75 stars, so not even that terribly low. It's almost a 2 stars. However, my average reading this year still felt kind of middle of the ground a lot of the time. And when I look at my average ratings, like Storygraph counts my rereads, there my average rating for this year is at a 3.8. And then when I look at my spreadsheet, my average rating is at a 3.2, so quite low. However, in my spreadsheet, the average rating is also skewed. I don't count rereads in my rating. I only count new to me books. However, I had quite a few books this year where I didn't really know what to rate them, so I didn't give them a rating at all. And those books still count in the number of total books read, so they kind of skew the average of my ratings. But yeah, so I think without my rereads, my average would be somewhere between 3.4 and 3.5 stars, which still isn't great and still is lower than a lot of other years. However, I don't know, reading was weird this year. But since this is not just my worst books, this is also gonna be my biggest disappointments. I want to start with some books that I did actually rate highly, however, that still ended up being quite a bit of a disappointment for me. And so I have 3 books that were disappointments. I have 5 books that I would count as the worst books of the year. And let's start with the disappointments, and with the one that I rated the highest. I actually gave this 4 stars, however it was still a disappointment for me. And the book I'm talking about is An Education in Malice by S.T. Gibson. This was kind of marketed as a Carmilla retelling or a Carmilla inspired story, and it follows this girl, or 2 girls actually. One is Laura Sheridan, who is this girl who's just entering college and kind of very secret history style gets included in this very exclusive club of students following this poetry teacher. And in this club is also the kind of personal protege of this teacher, who is Carmilla. And Laura also ends up becoming a personal protege, kind of finding out some of the secrets of this poetry teacher. And there's like vampires in here, there's a little bit of something of witchcraft in here, and I overall did enjoy it. I like S.T. Gibson's writing. However, the reason why I was disappointed is because I was promised Carmilla, and aside from the names and the fact that there was a female vampire in here, there was nothing that was even slightly reminiscent of Carmilla, like in the dynamics, in any of the characters, etc. in here. So it just wasn't enough for me for it to be so prominently marketed as a Carmilla reimagining. And then the other thing is that I absolutely loved and adored A Dowry of Blood when I read it, and A Dowry of Blood in its writing and in its storytelling is quite experimental and very unique. And so I expected something similar from this one. However, this felt very run-of-the-mill, standard, still good. Again, I ended up giving it 4 stars. However, I expected to be blown away once again, and I wasn't. So yeah, that's why this one makes it on the list of my biggest disappointments of the year. The next of the disappointments I had was Starling House by Alexei E. Harrow. This is kind of a what's it called, like gothic fiction, slightly, or gothic inspired fiction. about this town where there's this haunted house and there's this mysterious guy living in this haunted house, and our main character meets this guy and then stuff happens. It's pretty classic in terms of, like, it's a pretty classic haunted house type story. However, I had heard a lot of really good things about Alex E. Harrow's writing, and the type of things that I usually heard about this author made me think that the writing was really, or would really be for me. However, overall, I just didn't like the writing style that much. I couldn't really connect to the characters, and I found the story to be slightly bland and standard. I still enjoyed the vibes, like I really enjoyed the vibes. I ended up giving this 3.5 stars, so it's not a bad book by any means. It just ended up not really being for me. And then the last disappointment I want to talk about is The Fealty of Monsters by Lads, with illustrations by Hexen. This is a self-pub vampire book set in this Russian-inspired empire, or Russian Empire inspired empire, kind of on the eve of revolution, like, you know, 1917-ish, that time around. And we follow a vampire, a secret vampire, who is kind of the royal or imperial magician, or he's the son to the imperial magician. However, he basically takes over all the roles already, and we follow the daughter to the emperor and empress, so the princess, and it's just, you know, all in front of this backdrop of like a starting proletarian revolution. And I thought I would really enjoy this, also because Scylla absolutely loved this, and it seemed like the type of book that, well, there's some books where she enjoys them for specific reasons. I know they might not possibly be for me. However, with this one, I thought she loved it and I would at least really enjoy it. However, once again, it was a deal where the writing was really not for me. This felt overly descriptive, and I am someone who really enjoys like flowery prose or like purple prose. However, this didn't feel like purple prose. It just felt like very descriptive, and to be honest, I was maybe a little bit unfair because the first sentence pretty much already really turned me off of the writing style. And it was just like there was a bunch of description of landscape that didn't really do anything to build the vibes or to like set the scene. And from that point on, it was kind of already lost for me. However, even though I absolutely hated the first sentence, I still ended up giving this 3.25 stars. So if you don't mind the writing, I think you could still really enjoy this. And also this had some really interesting different type vampire lore that you usually don't often see, and it's definitely the scary type of vampire. So if you've been looking for a bit more of the scary type vampire, then maybe try and pick this up and see what you think of it. So yeah, I don't remember if I mentioned it, but I gave this 3.25 stars, so still over a 3 star. I still want to continue on with the series also, but again, it wasn't that I didn't or fully didn't enjoy this. It was more so I expected to give this at least 4 stars, but I ended up giving it 3.25 stars, which still isn't like a low rating. Like everything above a 3 star is still a book that I enjoyed. An again, I expected more of it. So I lied, I actually gave 6 books below a 3 star because one of them was an arc that I had, and let's start going through the books from the highest rated to the lowest rated. However, something that I have to say is that aside from maybe 2 books this year, a lot of the low ratings weren't really low ratings because I hated the books. They really weren't for me. I had few books where I was like, okay, I could rant about them because they were so bad, but most of these are like, they just were really below average in writing and enjoyment for me. And the first of those is my 2.75 star rating of the year, which was To Cage a God by Elizabeth May, which is the first book in these monstrous gods, and I had an arc of this. I ended up giving this 2.75 stars because this, once again, I don't remember a lot of the plot, but once again, it's kind of this Russian Empire inspired thing. There's a revolution going. There's two different main characters. One is the princess of the empire and one is like a magic user who has like literally a god inside of her, who is part of the revolution, or used to be part of the revolution, and now is just trying to find a way to get rid of this being inside of her. And I enjoyed the dynamic, if I remember correctly, between the two main characters. It's sapphic also. However, I thought that the world building and writing was just really messy and all over the place, and so I didn't enjoy that at all. And so I ended up giving it 2.75 stars. Next, I have my 2.5 stars. One of them was a book that was just like consistently pretty low. The other book was one where I was absolutely furious during most of the book. However, the ending kind of almost pulled it out and like pulled me into the story. So instead of rating it below 2 stars, I ended up rating it above 2 stars. But the first of those two, which I would say I enjoyed more, and I also am interested in continuing on with the series. The other one is a standalone, but even if it wasn't a standalone, I still wouldn't be interested in continuing on. But the first one is The Principle of Moments by Esme Chikemi Pearson. And actually, you'll see there's 4 of the 5 books on this list are actually Illumicrate books. One of them I was lucky enough to Cage a God to have as an ARC, so I didn't end up getting the edition. However, the rest is Illumicrate books, so yeah, Illumicrate didn't do too great for me this year. However, Illumicrate also consistently has some bangers out there, so I'm not too mad, and to be honest, for me personally, I love the items usually that I get in Illumicrate. But anyway, The Principle of Moments, this is time travel sci-fi. One is set in the future and one is set kind of in the past, around I think the 1900s, like the turn of the century, around 1900 I believe, or 18 something. It should say 1812, that's what it was. And we follow 2 characters, a young man and a young woman. And it's kind of a chosen one sci-fi story that to be honest, I don't remember the plot exactly. I just remember one of them could time travel and had a lover in the past, and that was a problem, and the other one was the chosen one. But yeah, I just once again found the world building to be really messy. I had a big thing this year where if I didn't like the world building, I didn't end up enjoying the book. And this is another one of those books where, for example, Scylla, I remember enjoyed it a lot more than me because she could connect a lot to the characters. And that is something that I just have a consistent issue with. That I have a pretty hard time a lot of times if there's like world building issues or writing issues or whatever, that I have a really hard time connecting to the characters, and then the story is kind of already lost to me. And so I don't think that this is a bad book. I think that it just had a lot of very specific issues that I have and that I found really messy, and I just don't enjoy it anymore to have like this kind of looming threat in the background that I can't really get a feel for, and where it doesn't feel like the threat is fully developed. It can be something where in the first book you're not quite sure what you're fighting against yet, but like if there is this big empire, I want to get a feel for why is this empire bad, aside from the fact that empires generally are bad, but like why is it bad? Why are our main characters fighting against it? What are the motivations? And for me it just didn't feel, if I remember correctly, again this was like at the very beginning of last year, it didn't really feel like that was fully there for me. So yeah, I ended up giving this 2.5 stars. Still want to see where the story continues on though, because this is a debut, and I have found with debut books that a lot of times they improve greatly with the second and third book and so on. And then my other 2.5 star was Voyage of the Damned. I just really didn't like the main character. like, my main issue really was two things. First of all, that it was first person present tense, which I cannot stand. I hate that type of writing. And second, I hated the main character, straight up. This is a standalone, and it's in this world where you have these different dukedoms, and once you have like the heirs to all the dukedoms, which you get because they like kind of develop magic powers, all of them just kind of set out on a voyage to be blessed at this mountain, and our main character doesn't have magic powers, so that's an issue actually. And so he sets out on this voyage. He hopes to God he's not discovered, and then the first night someone is killed, and then someone else is killed, and it kind of ends up being this murder mystery closed circle type plotline of trying to find out, not to be discovered, trying to not be discovered, and also find out who is killing everyone. And I just hated our main character, just straight up. I cannot stand him. He was so immature. He read like a middle grade main character. However, this is supposed to be new adults, so they are supposed to be in their early 20s. I did not like the romance. This is also queer. It was terrible. I hated the writing. I hated the main character. Again, by the end, like, I was so close to DNFing. I would have DNF'd if this wasn't an Illumicrate edition. I was so close to DNFing, and like the ending, I was somewhat engrossed enough to be like, okay, I guess I'm not gonna give it below 2 stars. I'm gonna give it 2.5 stars. However, like, thinking back on it, I don't even remember why the ending made me give this a higher rating, and why I didn't end up rating it lower anyway, because only the bad stuff remained in my memory. So yeah, didn't like this at all whatsoever. Next, I have my 2.25 star book, and that is The Serpent Bride by Sarah Douglas. This is a weird book, okay? This is the first book in the Dark Glass Mountain series, and in this world there's this prophecy of unspeakable evil coming, and we follow our main character who, to like kind of protect from this evil, is going to marry this king, and stuff is happening. It's pretty standard epic fantasy. I rated this so low because this was pretty fucking misogynistic, and our main character, from a pretty like self-reliant young woman at the very beginning of the story and in the first few chapters, just very quickly devolves into a passive plot device, which I didn't enjoy. There were also some women where the main plot of them was to be like consistently just being hurt and tortured and stuff and violated. However, for some reason, I don't know why, I flew through this book. I still had some fun with it, I guess. I don't know. I could rant forever about like the potential of this book versus what it actually is, because our main character is part of a cult that read the future in the entrails of like terrible people. It's great. But again, she becomes like a passive plot device, which was really annoying. But overall, I still want to continue on with this series. I still kind of want to continue on with this series, even though I definitely wouldn't recommend it. And again, it's like all the bad things of women in fantasy in a book, and written by a woman for some reason, which, for fuck's sake, I guess, whatever. Then I have my 2-star book, and that is Her Majesty's Royal Coven by Juno Dawson. This just fell completely flat for me. There were too many POVs. There were like 5 or 6 POVs in this book, which was all over the place. This was an interesting concept because basically it's, for those of you who don't know, it's also written by a trans author, and basically it's what if J.K. Rowling was the villain. So you have a bunch of witches who used to fight in this war, and they still are or were a part of Her Majesty's Royal Coven in Great Britain, which is kind of the secret society of witches. And there's this prophecy of this child coming that will bring the Leviathan, and one day they find someone who they think is a warlock, but who is way too powerful to be a warlock. And so they think this person is a Leviathan. However, what they then find out, or what one of the main characters finds out, is that actually this person isn't a warlock, this person is a witch and is a trans girl. So it makes sense that she's more powerful because witches tend to be more powerful than warlocks. And then our main villain is someone who doesn't want to accept this, and obviously then wants to go hunt down this child. And yeah, there were some good parts in it, but overall, plot-wise and like character-wise, it fell completely flat for me because, again, way too many POVs for this size of story or book. And also, it felt like the discussions that were had were pretty flat, and not in the way that like TERFs are terrible, because TERFs are terrible. There's not really that much nuance, but they were like, the author tried to have discussions about intersectionality. However, the way those were included in the story was just, it felt really weird, because there was, for example, there was this black witch. I think she was black and not Asian. Yeah, I think her girlfriend was Asian and she was black. And it felt like this character and her POV chapters existed purely to throw out some intersectional lines that we want to have, but without really being included or engaging in the story. And it didn't work for me, like, at all. I didn't like it, didn't like the writing, didn't like the characters, didn't like the way the nuance was built within the story. It just, not for me at all. And then the last one I have is, so, fun story. I had an arc of this book. I gave this book 1.75 stars. I knew that this book was part of Illumicrate, or would be part of an Illumicrate box. I really wanted the items in that box because there was a puzzle in there, which was a good thing because it ended up like reinvigorating my love for puzzling, and I've now been puzzling for the last few months, and I'm still really happy I got this, because this, I think, is the most gorgeous Illumicrate edition that I have. And the book I'm talking about is Dark and Drowning Tide by Alison Saft. And just look at this gorgeous book. Look at it. Anyway, this is a story following Lorelei. And Lorelei is a folklorist, and she is from a people that are very much Jewish coded. And she is set on this expedition to find the Ursprung, which is the source of all magic. And while going there, or while looking for the Ursprung, the leader of their expedition is killed. And then she and kind of her colleagues have to go on their own, while Lorelei also tries and to find out who murdered the leader and who's behind kind of trying to sabotage this expedition. The reason why I didn't like this is, while I enjoyed Lorelei as a main character at the beginning, she really fell flat for me towards the end, because she showed like zero character arc development whatsoever. It was really weird how like her heritage was handled a lot of times, and how she had to swallow down a lot of things in terms of how her surroundings interacted with her or reacted to her. I didn't really like the romance. This is also sapphic. I also found that there were too many plots for this shorter book. The book is, in the Illumicrate edition, 350 pages, and we have about 5 different plot lines. And the ending of the plot and the villain were really weirdly pro-colonial. So there was a lot of things that was just like messed up for me. Also, I don't remember if I said it at the beginning, but I have a review for this. I have a review for a lot of the different books on this list, and I will leave them linked down below, because usually I film my reviews at least somewhat close to when I finish the book. So yeah, but just didn't work for me whatsoever. However, I'm still so happy I have this edition. I'm sorry. Sometimes we just gotta be collectors and be happy with the little things, right? Sometimes that's just the way it is. And yeah, with that said, that was it for my worst books / biggest disappointments of 2024. Tell me in the comments down below if you have read any of these books, and if you also didn't like them, or they also disappointed you, or if you actually really enjoyed them, and what were your biggest disappointments of the year. If you enjoyed this video, maybe think about giving me a thumbs up. Subscribing is pretty useless right now because I'm gonna be taking a break after my next video. However, if you still want to follow me on Blue Sky, on Storygraph. Join the Discord of Queens, Witches and Valkyries, where we read one adult fantasy book written by a woman or a genderqueer person. Or also follow me on TikTok, because I will probably be more active in the next half year over there. And with all of that said, I hope I'll see you very soon. Bye!